you, Ollie, and welcome to today's very exciting webinar. This will be the most entertaining webinar you ever go to in your entire life, and I encourage you to make use of the time to get all of your questions answered. So basically, the plan for today is we're going to go through a few things that I consider to be the basics of your digital marketing, your social media. So we're going to go back and we're going to have a look at our call to actions, what they are, what they do, and then we're going to look at how to identify and prioritize your online channels, using social media to get maximum engagement out of your networks, looking at doing sponsored posts and ads to grow your networks, a bit of a quick crash course in how to develop graphics for social media and online use, and then we'll briefly look at Google AdWords advertising options before we give you some great next steps. Now, one of the differences between the approach today and some of the other webinars and things you might have been to in the past is we are a not-for-profit organisation ourselves, so we will focus clearly on what we know works for not-for-profits, which keeps in mind our limited budgets and resources. We'll provide you with advice which prioritises free or low-cost tools and helps you determine which platforms you need to use. So if you've got a recommendation for a different platform to the ones that we suggest today, I encourage you to speak up and somebody else might be able to benefit from your knowledge. But we probably have picked the ones that we've picked basically because of resourcing. All right. That's a very exciting plan. So let's start with the websites. Now, I have had a quick look at the organisations that registered for today's webinar, and not everyone had an easy to find website. So I don't know how much this applies to everyone on the webinar, but I just want to ask the question on what your website is trying to do. If your organisation doesn't have a website at the moment, this will be useful for when you do get one. If you do have a website, hey, I'm talking to you. So the thing here is we have different reasons for putting things on our websites, and it makes sense to the person who does it at the time, but what we actually need to do is take a step back, look at our website and go, well, what is our website actually trying to do? And this becomes quite important for Fund My Community reasons I'll go through in a minute. But basically, we only have one chance to make a first impression. And if someone sees your project on Fund My Community and they think that it's just the greatest idea ever and they really want to be involved or they really want to support it in some way other than just voting for it, how would they get involved? What would happen if they searched for you online, they went to Google or they went to Bing or whatever search engine they use? Would they find you? Would they go to your website? And if they go to your website, what would they actually find? So a couple of things here. When you go to your website, you need to ask yourself whether it appeals to the right audience. There are a couple of pretty easy ways that we can test this. We can ask people, we can get a small pool of people, or we just get the newest person into the organisation who may have some ideas there. Is the website easy to use? Is it clear what people need to do? Is it accessible for people with disabilities? We're in the non-profit sector. This is vital for us to be accessible. And one thing that we'll go through in Friday's webinar, which I'll talk about at the end, is we'll talk a bit more about search engine optimization. Search engines, when they go through your website, read it much like a person with a vision disability. So if our website is accessible for people with disabilities, it will open up opportunities with search engines. And is it easy for your desired audience to perform the action that you want them to take on the homepage? Do you want them to make a donation? Do you want them to sign up to a newsletter? This is where your call to action comes in. If you want them to sign up for a newsletter, then that's a really good way of being able to inform them when your Fund My Community project is ready to launch and you're looking for donors, you're looking for volunteers, you're looking for participants. So what we're really trying to get you to do here is when somebody goes to your website, it needs to be completely obvious what you want that person to do on your website. And as soon as the voting period opens for Fund My Community, the core message on that website is going to be vote for us on Fund My Community. And if you want more information about this project, sign up to our newsletter. We'll talk about newsletters in more detail on Friday. Today's mostly about social media and a few other little basics. But that newsletter is going to be a really effective way of being able to capture people who are interested in your Fund My Community project now, but you need to communicate with them when it's actually launched. So, are you actually ready for Fund My Community? Are you ready to party? Now, I did check through people on the webinar, on social media and on the website. Now, the first thing I would recommend that you do is if you have a news section on your website or a blog, the most up-to-date thing on your news or blog section should be, we've been selected for Fund My Community, vote for us. There shouldn't be an opportunity for somebody to go to your website and find that the latest piece of latest news is from October 2014. The other thing is social media. There were organisations on the webinar who hadn't updated their social media for a year or more. Now, if people are going to look for information about you, it needs to be current. So this is a golden opportunity, even if you've got a small supporter base on Facebook, to let them know about your project and to start that ball rolling. And you can use some of the tips that we're going to go through in the rest of this webinar to increase your audience on those social media platforms. The thing is, right, you should be excited about your project. Okay, you should be happy about your project, happy about the opportunity to be selected in Fund My Community and get this funding. So you should want to tell everybody possible about it. So don't forget to tell people about your project using any channel that you've got, digital or otherwise. As I mentioned before, it's important to create that link between your website and your project. One of the things in the evaluation reports from last year's Fund My Community was that lots of people actually did find information on Fund My Community about projects, and these people were a combination of donors, participants and potential volunteers who really liked the idea of the project. They can vote for it through the Fund My Community process, and that's great, they can support you that way. But if they actually want to participate in the project in some way, shape or form, they need to have a mechanism by which they can do that. So if you've got a website, it needs to be there. If you've got a social media platform, it needs to be there. And we will go through on Friday simple things, simple ways that you can set up newsletter lists and things like that that will directly drive people there. If you don't want to set up if you don't have a website and you don't want to set up a newsletter list, then your call to action would be to follow us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with the news. Have we got any questions about that aspect of things so far?
No, no questions, so you can keep going, Ryan.
Thank you, Ollie. All right, so now we need to be smart, okay? And the reason why we need to be smart about this, and you've probably all seen this SMART matrix, we need to be smart about our online presences and our social media because unlike the big corporations of the world, we don't have unlimited money and resources to throw at these. So we need to be quite critical about where we spend our time, money and resources. So we need to develop some SMART goals around what we want to get out of every online profile that we're part of. So we need to be specific about it, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be achievable, relevant to what we're actually looking to achieve here and timely. So I've given you an example there of increased traffic from social media to our online services by 5% in 3 months. You may want to narrow that down to increase traffic from Facebook to our website by 5%. A goal for Fund My Community might be increased leads to our email list for when we launch this service. So we need to come up with some specific goals there. So what we can do from there is decide what platforms we're going to use for our social media. Now, at this point, I would get you to refer back to your SMART goals. So it's a good exercise after this webinar to actually come up with some SMART goals, or you may want to do it now and run them past me before the end of the webinar. We can refer to our SMART goals, and then we need to identify our audiences. So if our goal is to increase participation in our programs, and our programs are particularly targeted at, let's say, 18 to 24-year-olds, males and females, we've got our little audience group there. So then we can go through what I'm about to go through, and we can understand what each platform is good for. We can develop goals for each platform. We can plan out the content assets that we need for those platforms, which is probably going to be mostly images, which we'll talk about later. And then we can identify any gaps from those different platforms and look to bridge them through some kind of offline activity or something else. But the most important thing from there is to measure our impact. Because if you can measure your impact with these digital platforms, then you can actually understand what the investment that you're making actually gives you. And you can also use the measurement to be able to understand what works for your audience and what doesn't, and tailor it later on. So the recommendation here is to prioritize platforms that will give you the most impact and help you reach your goals. And with the number of organizations we've got on today's webinar, you've got plenty of time to actually run scenarios past us if you want to talk about that. But first, let's actually look at social media use in Australia. So this is usually an interesting stat for a lot of people, and these figures are almost 12 months old now, the new ones are due out next month, but 93% of Australians are on Facebook. That's not a big surprise to most people. Facebook is by far and away one of the most popular websites on the internet. But what is often interesting for people is that 17% of Australians are on Twitter. But we all have a big focus on Twitter usually in our social media, but there aren't that many people on it. So now we're looking at this and we're starting to work out where we should prioritize our resources. Instagram compared to Twitter, 26%. And when the new figures come out next month, I imagine that Instagram will be quite a lot higher than that as well. It's been a big 12 months for Instagram. We know that 49% of us use social media every day, and 45% of us use social media first thing in the morning. It's become a bad habit that we've got where one of the first things we reach for in the morning is the mobile phone. Maybe it's because the alarm's on the mobile phone or whatever it is, but most of us are using it first thing in the morning. So now we know where the critical mass is. So if I had to look at this and make a hard decision right now, maybe it's Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram that are going to give us the best impact in terms of people that we can reach. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I gave the example before about an organisation that is serving 18 to 29-year-olds. Well, 18 to 24, I think I said. You can see over here, 18 to 29-year-olds are a bracket. We can see what their social media use is as opposed to the other demographics here. They're the highest group of Facebook users. 97% of them are Facebook users. LinkedIn is a bit lower than the averages that I showed you before, which says something about who LinkedIn is targeted at. It's targeted at business professionals that are trying to network with other business professionals. So depending on your program, LinkedIn may be a good fit. But this is the key stat here. 54% of 18 to 29-year-olds are on Instagram. So over half of 18 to 29-year-olds are on Instagram versus 20% for Twitter. So this is where we do need to make those hard decisions about which platforms we're going to prioritize. And so things like Google Plus and Twitter probably don't rank as priorities here. You'll also see here that Snapchat comes into it as well. We've got 38% of 18 to 29-year-olds on Snapchat. I'll show you some stats in a minute from younger demographics, but you'll find that, again, when these new stats come out in May, and these are census stats, by the way, so they do an annual state of social media report. I expect this 38% Snapchat to be closer to 50% by now. So if we know who we are trying to target, then we can develop strategies to target them based on the platforms that they actually use. We wouldn't get people on Tumblr because Tumblr usage is pretty low in Australia. We wouldn't try and target men using Pinterest because there's only 8% of men on Pinterest versus 25% women. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do all of these effectively, so we need to prioritize. Now, this looks pretty simple to consider South Australia. We are over here. We're a little bit lower in terms of our Facebook penetration compared to, say, Western Australia, 93%. We're lower in LinkedIn, but still those trends in terms of Instagram, Facebook, even Snapchat to an extent hold true. So we can break this down and we can prioritize however we want, but it'll depend on who we want to target. And it may also be that you're trying to target 3 different groups of people. So you might be targeting, let's say you're trying to target 24-year-old as participants. You're trying to target 30 to 40-year-olds to volunteer for your program to provide mentoring support to those 18 to 24s, and you might be targeting 40-plus-year-olds to donate to the program. So you might pick 3 different platforms to do that. You might pick 3 different messages, well, you would pick 3 different messages to do that and work from there. But I'll show you shortly how to do the targeting on Facebook so that you can use Facebook to target all of those groups. But now we're starting to get a picture of where our organizations should focus our resources for our social media efforts. Facebook is pretty much the only platform currently on offer in Australia that I would consider to be a must-have. And that's based solely on the usage stats that we can see. All of the rest of them would vary slightly depending on the audience that you're trying to reach. Now, I promised some stats on teens. Unfortunately, these stats don't exist in Australia just yet, but in the US, teens 13 to 17, only 71% Facebook. Interesting stat, but you can see here Instagram is a lot higher. It's 52%, Snapchat's 41%, and as this demographic grows older, you'll see all of the platforms here that are very popular. Vine 24%, Instagram 52%, Snapchat 41%. The thing that differentiates these platforms compared to, say, the Twitters of the world is they're very, very visual. People were sharing photos and videos on Instagram, on Snapchat, videos only on Vine. So it's the visual content that works better with the younger demographics. So now that we've got, and I should mention too, the recording and the slides for this webinar will be sent out afterwards, so you'll be able to go back and review these demographics. But now that we've had a look at the demographics and who's actually using what, now we need to decide what we're going to pick. So my advice here is to register for all of them just to protect your name if you choose to use that platform later on. Some people don't believe in that, but it's quite frustrating experience when you can't get access to the names that you need. There are also scheduling tools that you might use. We like Hootsuite here because it's cheap, or there's a free plan, but we can actually use Hootsuite to schedule on multiple platforms at the same time. So we can, we might focus our resources on Facebook and maybe on Twitter, but then we can automatically post on Instagram, Google Plus, that. It just keeps the content churning over without investing significant time resources. Gives us access to another audience. All right. So, in terms of Facebook, it is the one that we'll emphasize here because it is the most popular. What we find works for us here are photo posts, stories about behind the scenes things, fun or motivational behind the scenes photos, and video increasingly, useful resources. What doesn't work for us is straight sales messages. I say that this is what works for us. This is pretty universal. If you put a message up on Facebook that says, please don't, you probably won't get a very good uptake. If you can put a photo up with a, this is somebody who has been through our program. This is why it's a great program. This is what we do. Something that's really powerful and got a good story behind it. The visual content is what works best on all of the platforms now. So a great photo or video, a great little short description of what it's on about. That changes the message from please donate to us to this is a really moving story. This is why you're donating to us. Please donate to us. Very different way of sending the same message, basically. Now, I know that most of you are already on Facebook, but if you are posting on Facebook, you should post on Facebook. So if you're using a scheduling tool like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or something like that, you don't get the same functionalities you get if you post directly on your page on Facebook, like tagging partners and things like that. Things that can potentially get you noticed by other people. It's been proven now that you need to add media to every post. So that might be a photo, it might be a video, or it might just be a link. It's been proven that this drives more engagement from your fans and better results. Facebook have also said now that they prioritize that kind of content with their algorithm in terms of which of your fans get to see what. The other thing I would add to that is if you're posting video content and you're posting that video content on YouTube, you will get higher engagement and better results if you upload that video to Facebook as well, rather than linking to the YouTube video. Because Facebook have done their own video content now for about 12 months, they prioritize video content using their platform when they determine what your fans actually get to see in their feed. So you will get better results by uploading the video to Facebook as opposed to putting a link to YouTube on Facebook. Scheduling Facebook posts is a really great idea because it allows you to work a lot more efficiently. So if you have a predetermined schedule of posts that you want to send out to do with your Fund My Community project, you can schedule them all in one day if you want. And that works really well in terms of just being able to stay on top of things and not having other activities get in the way. But it's key here that you don't get lazy about it. Scheduling is not a replacement for engagement. And if you get good engagement through these Facebook posts, people are going to be posting on your page, people are going to be commenting, and they're going to be messaging you for more information about the project. So you will need to use the time that you get back from scheduling and put that into actually trying to engage with your audience. I won't emphasize the targeting too much right now because I'll do a live demo of that in a minute. But do we have any questions on Facebook before I move on to the Twitters?
No questions so far, Ryan, so you can keep going.
Cool, thanks, Ollie. All right, so in terms of Twitter, you know, it's a tricky one to talk about these days because Twitter is probably in a state, it'd be fair to say it's in a bit of a state of flux. They are, they've just experienced no growth for the first quarter ever. So they're just sort of reassessing what they're doing. I mean, what we find works for us is using hashtags that are relevant. So for our examples, if we're tweeting something about the nonprofit sector, we know from research that there is a hashtag that's related to the nonprofit sector, which is #NPAU, and we can use that hashtag and it comes up in people's feeds. We get a lot more retweets and responses to that. If we're commenting about nonprofit technology, it would be #NPTech. If we were posting about an event that we're running in Adelaide, we would use the hashtag Adelaide. So there is a little bit of research involved in that, but it's pretty easy to do a search on Twitter and find out what the hashtags are relatively easily. If you are dealing with a particular issue in the community, you would be able to find hashtags for those communities. You can use your own hashtag for your program if you like, but I think one of the main uses of Twitter for the organisations on this particular webinar is going to be to find more people to vote for your project. So in that case, you'd want to piggyback off of other hashtags. If there is a hashtag of people talking about something that you're doing and you can piggyback off of that and go, I know you're talking about this, we're actually solving the issue, you can help us by voting for our project and getting us funded through Fund My Community. That's a way of being able to actually get these people to work for you. Discussing one-on-one with people works quite effectively through Twitter as well. Gives them an opportunity to ask questions. People may not want to ask these questions over the phone. They may not be able to. They may have a disability that stops them from doing that. They may have an aversion to using the phone. So interacting with people one-on-one on Twitter just gives another option for these people. We can also find out who shares our content. We can set things up using Hootsuite and using Google Analytics to find out who shares our content and interact with them. But also promotional material is okay in the Twitter world. Twitter is a lot more immediate, so if we send promotional material out and people don't care about it, they'll just ignore us and move on. Whereas Facebook, the way that their algorithm works, sometimes people will be looking at content that's a couple of days old on their feed. Now, we need to be able to measure our results from all of these platforms. It's really important so that we can understand what's giving us our return on investment, even if that investment is only time. But it's also really useful for us to understand what is working for us and what isn't working for us so that we can continue to experiment and get better engagement and get more people on the page and get more interest. So Facebook Insights I will look at in a minute, but it allows you to see the graph of how your fan base is going, your likes. It allows you to see the reach and engagement for your page. So that's how many people the messages on your page actually reach and how many of those people then engage with your content, whether it's a click on it or whether it's a like or a comment or a share or something like that. It allows you to actually break that engagement down into posts so you can understand what does and doesn't work. You can see the demographics. Now, one way that I've used the demographics in the past is to actually see where the gaps are in the demographics. So I was working on a page that had a particularly male skewed demographic. It was roughly 75% male, 25% female. The organisation in question really wanted to have a higher representative group of females. So they ran advertising through Facebook that was particularly targeted at females. that increase their female representation on their page. So they went from 75% male, 25% female to 66% male, 34% female. So that's a way of doing it. It may also be that your demographics are fine. You're a program that is particularly targeting women, so you are actually fine if your demographics are 100% females. You can also set up pages to watch so that you can understand which other pages are becoming popular and which ones aren't. Now with Twitter, they kind of have the same thing, but it's not as sophisticated. So you can go to analytics.twitter.com and get some basic stats. They're not ideal though. If you want some good stats on Twitter, you're probably going to have to use something like Hootsuite. So the free Hootsuite plan manages 3 social media profiles. The professional does up to 50. The free has basic reporting and analytics. The pro has some more advanced things. And you can access the free plan that started, but if you need more than those 3 social profiles, then we can help you with that. Now, one other thing that people aren't really picking up just yet is that on your Facebook page now you can create a call to action button. And the idea behind the call to action button is Facebook have put it in really obvious places on both the Facebook pages on the computer and the ones on your phone. And so you can set these to be whatever you want. So you might choose to use this as a way of getting people to vote for your project. So you would put the website for your Fund My Community project in here. You would change the button to whichever option you want to use, and people will be able to pay and be able to contribute to your cause straight away. We need to give them every possible opportunity to be in their face and to give them the instruction to do that. Because I guarantee you, if you don't tell them that you want them to vote for you, they won't do it. All right, similar questions, so let's move on. So before I dive into the different platforms, some core concepts of online advertising for those who are new to this world. Online advertising is quite different to the way that we used to do this, okay? So I pick on my dad a lot here when I present this kind of content, and I'm going to do it again today. So when I was growing up, my dad had his own business. He still does have his own business, but back in sort of the 90s, his idea of marketing his business or advertising his business was to put an ad in the Yellow Pages. And so he would pay the Yellow Pages a set amount regardless of how many people looked at his ad and how many people actually acted on that ad. And he really had no clear idea of whether that ad was working or not. He could talk to the pages, so he'd go, oh, okay, well that's good. I'm getting value for money from that. But it's very difficult to actually tell. Online advertising is built around a couple of core concepts regardless of which platform we use. It works differently because we have complete budget control. So we can set how much we want to spend per day, and we can set how much we want to spend for the duration of a campaign. The good thing about that is that we don't have to set a very high budget. We might want to spend $10 a day for 3 days, and that might get us a big enough impact to get a lot of votes and to get people interacting with us. The other thing is these are usually pay per click, which means that there's no cost to actually put the ad there. You only pay when someone clicks on your ad. That's basically how Google AdWords works, probably 90% of the time. You're not paying to put the ad there, you're only paying for someone to click on it. So it becomes very low risk for your organization, because if the ad doesn't work, you haven't actually spent anything. if the ad does work in bringing people to your website, they do actually click on it, and then they don't follow through and do what you want them to do on the website, then maybe that's a separate issue about the website and how direct it is. We do also have this pay per impressions model. And Facebook still use this a little bit, but it's a little bit of a different model for online advertising, whereas we pay for the cost per 1,000 impressions. So that's pretty much just paying for how many people actually looked at your ad. So you're just paying to have your ad branded online, essentially. Can you imagine if the Yellow Pages 10 years ago turned around and said, okay, well, we're only going to charge you for how many people actually look at your ad, or we're only going to charge you for how many people actually ring you as a result of your ad. You might have been paying $50 a year for your Yellow Pages ad instead of $2,000. Now, we get full reporting on those models, so we know how many people have clicked, we know then where they've gone to on our website and what they've done, so it's all very strong. We also have this option of boosting posts, which a lot of you would be pretty familiar with, I hope. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. But you can see how many people you'll actually be contacting. So Facebook, where we can advertise to attract website traffic, we can advertise to get likes to our Facebook page. In this context, that website traffic might be getting people to vote for Fund My Community. This might be a two-way process for you. This might be advertising to increase the likes to your Facebook page to grow your audience, but at the same time you might be advertising, boosting posts to get more people to vote for you on the page. Now, what I will do briefly is actually show you this. So, do I put it over here? There we go. So this is our Facebook page. It says connecting up. So on this page we have all of our content. So we can do what we need to do here. Now let's say that this particular webinar here that is about public relations for nonprofits. Let's say we've only reached 124 people with that post. We know how many people we reached with that. We didn't pay to reach those people either. But let's say that I need more people to go to that webinar. I might want to boost this post. So if I click the boost post button, I get to see what my post is going to look like. I can choose desktop or I can choose mobile. That's what it's going to look like if somebody's browsing Facebook on their mobile. Now I can choose who I want to target boosted post. So if I just want to promote my webinar to people that I know like connecting up, well, I can choose that and I can say, I just want to target people who like our page. And you might have seen this recalculate here. So this is the thing that I like the most about boosting posts. I know roughly how many people I'm going to reach. If I choose to reach people who like our page, going to reach between 320 and 840 people if I spend $35. If I only want to spend $20, I'm going to reach less. I'm going to reach 240 to 630 people. But it's $10 less, so that might be pretty good. You know, I can spend $130 if I want. I can also choose my own. I have complete control here. So if I only want to spend $5, I'm only going to reach 100 to 270 people, but that's okay. It's giving me a higher audience that potentially gets me the numbers to take that webinar further. But I'm not that likely to do that because what I really want to do is grow the number of people who like the page. I want to grow the number of people who register for the webinar. So I might choose people who like our page and their friends. People might see, you know, sometimes you see on Facebook that there'll be an ad like this, but it'll say Ryan Jones, Ollie Manel, and 2 other friends like Connecting Up Inc. It acts somewhat as a recommendation in that case. So again, straight away by doing that, I'm reaching more people. So for the same $5 budget, people who like the page, I was only reaching 100 people, but it's very transparent here. If I want to spend $20, I'm going to reach 820 to 2,200 people. Where this gets even more advanced is people we choose through targeting. Now, I'm going to need to create a new audience here. But let's say that you were offering a program that targeted a specific area of Adelaide. Let's pick Woodville. I've used that as an example a lot lately. So let's pick Woodville. So my location, I can choose countries, I can choose states, so I can limit this to South Australia if I want. But if I just want to target Woodville, let's pick Woodville. And Facebook should find Woodville for me. And I can pick how many miles away from that city I want to count. So maybe it's 10. Okay, that's pretty close. And when I was saying before about your age demographics, my mouse isn't working. Let's say I only want to reach 18 to 24-year-olds. All genders are fine. And let's say, I know there is a theatre in the webinar, so let's say I want to pick theatre, maybe Broadway theatre, maybe musical theatre, maybe Adelaide Festival Centre. So I can save this as a demographic that I can use here. And now I get a different audience. So because my ad is more targeted, Facebook's going to give me more reach for this for the same budget. So now I'm going to reach between 990 and 2,600 people. Across Facebook, this isn't targeting Woodville. We'll have to find out why that is later. But across Facebook, there's 330,000 people who fit this criteria. I can reach between 990 and 2,600 of them for $20. Now, I can do this with great certainty, okay? I can do this promotion and know that that's how it's going to work. And everything's reported on, so I know exactly what has happened afterwards. So I will need to pay for my ad. So in my case, I'm already set up with PayPal. The first time you do this, you'll need to put some payment details in, and they will bill you a couple of days afterwards. And then I just click boost, and that happens. So that's to boost the posts. I would think that a lot of you would be using people who like your page and their friends to start out. And that'll pick up a few fans, a few friends of friends, but people you choose through targeting will target new people who are completely new to your page. So that gives you the best way of being able to reach people who've never heard of you. And if you limit it down to your geographic area, that'll give you the best impact and the best value for money. Now, if I just wanted to promote my page in general, then maybe I go to promote, and maybe I want to promote my page. Facebook do quite a good job of trying to handhold us through this process because they need to, because if it's too difficult, we won't do it. So this is what our post is going to look like. I want to target all genders. I want to target, let's stay with the young people example. Let's say I want people less than 30. I want them to be in South Australia or in Adelaide. So that's fine. What are their interests? Do I want to segment it based on their interests? Well, let's get people who are interested. Oh no, this is what we've already set up. So I can add interests if I want, but by setting these interests, I know that I'm dealing with people who are the most likely to like my page. Now here I'm actually setting a budget per day and a duration for the campaign. Now again, they've set me a $7 budget per day, and this will take place over 7 days. I don't have to do that. I can pick, let's say I want to run this until Friday, and I only want to spend $5 per day. Obviously I'm going to reach less people, but it's not dramatically less because it's only $2 different, and I'm going to get that many people per day for the next couple of days. Easy. So again, I've got that complete budget control and that complete ability to report on it. Then afterwards, I can go to my insights. And I can see which of our posts were successful, what their reach was, what their engagement was. If I go back a little bit further, I should be able to find the one that was boosted. Yep, so this one here was boosted, so you can see there it tells me that 248 people saw it organically, so I didn't pay for those, but I paid for 11,920 extra ones. And I got reasonable engagement for that, but this post here, I didn't boost at all. I got higher organic reach, probably because I had higher engagement. People were more interested in that post. All right, now before I finish up on that, has anyone got any questions on advertising on Facebook? Ollie's shaking his head, which means no. But we have plenty of time for more questions if you'd like. So, and hopefully you are not asking questions because you get it. If you didn't understand what we just demoed, I do encourage you to reach out and use the opportunity to anonymously ask your question. So the other form of advertising online that I would recommend is the Google for Nonprofits program. So Google have set up this program. It's been in Australia for a bit over 12 months. It's free to sign up, and $10,000 per month credit on a Google AdWords account. So you can only spend that for advertising on Google, but if somebody is searching for, let's use the community theatre example again, let's say somebody is looking for a theatre group in Mount Gambier, then they would find an ad for you when they search for that. You can specifically target that. Now, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail today. This is very much a more advanced thing to cover. Connecting Up do offer courses on this from time to time. So if you sign up to our newsletters, you'll be able to find out when the next one is. But completely free to sign up, and you'll get that $10,000 credit per month. You can then advertise on google.com.au. It's across desktop and mobile searches. You can integrate it with Google Analytics for your tracking, and we'll talk about Google Analytics on Friday. So what I'm talking about here is, this is a Google search. These are your ads. So they've been phasing out the sidebar ads, but they still appear up here. So you want people to be able to find you very prominently through that process. Now, joining Google for Nonprofits, I mentioned, is free, and you will get that $10,000 AdWords grant per month. If you don't spend all of it, it just remains unused and expires at the end of the month, and then the next month you get another 10,000. All right, so let's talk about making images with Canva. Now, the reason why I'm focusing on Canva here is because it's free You can do it online, and it's pretty much point and click. It also has basic image sizes for social media built in, so you don't need to be an expert on social media image sizes. So let's go back to my example, my example screen. So this is Canva once I've logged in. This is my account. So you can see here, they've actually provided us with a lot of example posts already. So you can use this for online images, offline images, whatever you need. But these look pretty good just from the outset. So it's pretty easy for me to set something up. So let's say I want to do a social media post. I want to do, in this context, let's do a Facebook post. So let's click on that and see what Canva has for us today. So in the past, we would have used Adobe Photoshop or something for this kind of thing. And it can be quite daunting if you're not familiar with Adobe Photoshop. But here is our new Facebook post coming to life. Now, if we want to put a quote up maybe, well, let's pick an offer because this is a good one. So click on this artwork that they've already provided for us. And oh no, we won't pick this one. So Canva is free, but you can see this little tiny little icon with the dollar sign. That means that you've got to put that one, so we won't do that. We'll pick a free one. Let's go with this one. That's a good quote. So at this point, we don't really need to worry about what the text says. We don't really need to worry about the background image. This is giving us a layout that we can start with. It's a blank one if you want, but a lot of people prefer to start with something that's already done because they look pretty good. Now I can choose to do charts. I can upload photos. I can add icons. I can put little drawings in, little lines and stuff. Let's say I've got a great idea. So I want to put that in. I can just grab the corner and I can resize that and I can put that down here. That looks okay. There's a bit of text over it, but that's all right. I can fix that. Now let's go to the text. Now here again, we can pick our fonts and we can pick the formatting of our text. I'm not going to mess around with the formatting because I quite like this. I could if I wanted. I could add, let's say, this text here about our exhibition being on now, and Canva adds it. But that looks terrible because it's text over text. So I press the trash can and it goes away. So now what I want to do here is take this text, vote for us in Fund My Community, and then maybe here, help us improve the lives of South Australians. So this is already set up for me, and I've just been able to point and click, make that look pretty good. I can just grab that and move it around. That's not a bad looking social media image. I'd be quite proud to put that on the Facebook page and say that that's us. I should have mentioned before with the elements, when I said photos you can also upload your own logo. So for me, I have photos. Where did I put them? I have my own uploads, there it is. So I have a Microsoft logo here that I can use. So let's say, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I'll put my Microsoft logo. I was trying to put it in the background and I don't want to go there. All right, so I've added my logo now. Now in terms of the background, You saw before that I was dragging and dropping the Microsoft logo in there accidentally. Lucky I can fix that. But I can also now change my image tints. So that's purple, that might suit some people. Maybe I want green. Green seems a bit more in line with voting because it seems a bit more go to me. Now I'm just waiting for the images to load. All right, something's taking a little while, so we'll move on. So there you have it. There is our image. I don't like that Microsoft logo there anymore, so I'm going to delete that. But that's a pretty good image to vote for us in my community. And that took me a couple of minutes, and I didn't need to have any special design flair or skill. I was able to just knock that from their templates and make it look my own. So now that I've got the image, I need to get it to social media. So I can click the download button here and I can get a high quality image or an image for web. I'm going to talk about different image sizes in a minute, but if I want to put this on Facebook, I'm going to want image high quality PNG. I can go down to options. I have particular options I want to include, but I don't. So Canva will prepare a design and download it to our computer for us, and then we can add it to our Facebook post. Now, if you are a skilled person with Photoshop, you might want to stick to using Photoshop, and that is absolutely fine. But if you're a person that always goes, we need to look better and we need to look more professional, but I don't get design, I can't use Photoshop, I'm not with the skills, Canva is something that you can use, and for free. Now, if you are using Photoshop, it is available as a donation to not-for-profits through Connecting Up, but you can actually save presets for all of your image sizes, and you can save templates for common posts. So you can see here I've created a preset for Facebook post. I put my dimensions in there, and that means that every time I want to create a Facebook post, I put my document type as Facebook post, and it has the right size. I can also optimize for the web through that way as well, which is particularly important if you do email newsletters and to make sure that your website loads nice and fast. If any Photoshop users on here and they want more information about that, let me know. I won't dwell on it too much, considering we talked about Canva. So when we're actually creating images for the web, there are 4 key image files here, and often people get a little bit confused about them, which is why I've got that great example on the right-hand side there. So the main 4 formats here are PNG, JPEG, GIF, or SVG. And so when you're creating images for the web, you saw Canva gave us the option of saving a JPEG or a PNG. What this looks like is going to depend on the image that you've got, which is why Photoshop's export function is so powerful. I can actually mess around with the format and see the quality that I'm going to get out of that. So in terms of a GIF, it's a low resolution image format. It can only display 256 colors, but it can be animated, which is a slight benefit for us there. In terms of JPEGs, they're perfect for photos. They're a higher resolution image format, but the side effect is they're bigger. PNGs are basically a high resolution alternative to GIFs. They can be quite small image sizes as well. It's more modern. And SVG is a scalable vector file, which is one of the smallest files you can use, but you need to have the right kind of image to use that. So what that actually looks like, now that I've got over the jargon, I can save exactly the same image 3 different ways in 3 different formats to get 3 very different sizes. So the GIF is 11.7 kilobytes. It's pretty small, but the 8-bit PNG is only 6.39 kilobytes. and the JPEG is 19.3 kilobytes. Now in this example, I would definitely go with a PNG because I can see how much smaller that is. And if I look at those three photos, they all look the same to me. So there's no noticeable decrease in quality going to that small file size. If I was saving a photo the same way, the GIF would look terrible, the PNG would be huge, and the JPEG would be the Goldilocks just right option. So our goal here is to create images that look good, but we keep our file sizes as low as possible so that people don't have to wait to load our materials, whether they're on our website or whether they're on our email newsletter or whatever it might be. No questions. Okay, well we've reached the end, so we have got time for questions, but before we go into that, while you're thinking of your questions, there is more Fund My Community training coming up. You may have heard me go on about Friday. So on Friday we have the intermediate session. When I say intermediate, it's an intermediate version of the basic session. So we're going to look at things like Google Analytics, email marketing, and the ways that you can track some things. We're also doing a couple of face-to-face workshops tomorrow at the Adelaide Pavilion. So there's an afternoon session which is 3 till 4:30, and there's an evening session which is 6 till 7:30. You'll be able to get face-to-face with myself, and we'll be able to talk about your specific requirements. It'll be some of the content that we presented today, and it'll be some of the content that we're going to present on Friday. So if you do prefer face-to-face, then it's a good option for you. I mentioned before that we send these slides out. So you'll get a copy of these URLs. These are 4 webinars that we've run in the relatively recent past, which provide you with a bit more information about some of the concepts that we talked about today. So I encourage you to check them out if you found some of the things you need a more detail on, and they're available for you to watch whenever you need. The last thing I'll just talk about quickly today is we actually offer a 1-hour free mentoring session with our premium membership, as well as discount on our conference, discounts on our paid webinars and workshops, and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. So if you do like the idea of being able to sit down with someone and talk through your marketing or social media problem, there's a couple of people here, myself included, that do that. The membership program is $150 a year, and you get that hour included for free. So do we have any questions now, Ollie?
You've obviously been very clear because we still don't have any questions.
All right, well, we'll give it a couple of minutes just in case anyone's got any last questions. Use the opportunity while you've got it. But hopefully some of you will attend Friday's webinar, go into some of the more advanced things, and maybe even tomorrow afternoon. There's a few spots left for the afternoon and the evening sessions. So if you're interested, come along.
Okay, so still no questions. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap things up, Ryan?
No, it's just really good that the Department of Premier and Cabinet and Fund My Community have offered these sessions with us. So I highly recommend you make use of as many of them as you can. I think they'll be really useful to just, if you aren't making full use of your online properties at the moment, by the end of all of the training that we've provided, you should be all on top of it.
Okay, thank you for presenting, Ryan, and thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. I hope you have learned a lot from it. As mentioned earlier, we will send you a link to the recording and a copy of the slides shortly. And if you have any questions that come to your mind later on, please feel free to send them through to events@connectinghub.org and I will forward them to Ryan. And that is the end of this webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day.